away we go with a Friday edition of the show all across America on SportsMap Radio. Worldwide, anywhere you can possibly be. Well, that has an internet connection of some kind. Or maybe a cell phone or whatever. The SportsMap Radio app, that's one way to be in touch with us. A lot to do over the next 3 hours. You can watch the show on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 is my name there. Also, don't forget on TikTok, the Jason Page. I know, it's a lot to remember. We gotta just put it in one place where people can find it. So, as I said, a lot to do over the next 3 hours. I spent the night watching... I mean, it's early, but I spent some of the night watching this Spurs game at the Alamo Dome. They went to the Alamo to play the Spurs. So it was Spurs Warriors, and they set a record attendance tonight for the game. I think over 65,000 fans there. So I was kind of tuned into that for a bit. Just one, to see how the Warriors played on the road, because they've been so bad on the road this season. They actually played pretty well and able to get a lot of their guys some rest in the fourth quarter as they ran away in the third, which is what the Warriors used to do. They used to go run away and hide in the third quarter, and they were able to rest guys a lot in the fourth quarter. And you can tell right now, I mean, for Greg Popovich and the Spurs, it's suck for Wembanyama or DJ Henderson. And we'll see if they can suck enough to get one of those two potentially transformational stars in the NBA draft. I mean, San Antonio is a great basketball city. They're suffering through a tough year this year, though. But good to see the Warriors getting back on track. We will be joined later in this hour, about 28 minutes from now, by Scott Seidenberg. He is with pregame.com, hosts some podcasts there. Used to be with VSiN, also did a terrific job years back with me over on NBC Sports Radio. We'll hear from him coming up. The betting part of NFL Super Wild Card Weekend. We'll get into all of that coming up. And coming up in about 13 minutes, we'll do our usual NBA Live betting bonanza. We'll figure out what games we like tonight on the NBA Live betting side. And we will talk about one of the worst beats you can possibly have for a live betting game. Last night's Lakers-Mavericks game. We've got to revisit that. And there's actually another reason to revisit it as well. But we'll do that coming up. But I want to begin the program tonight with that girlfriend you just can't break up with. Or that boyfriend you just can't break up with. You know the relationship is sour. It had its great years. It was a great run. It was fun in the beginning. It was lively. You used to go out for nice dinners, go enjoy a night on the town. 2-3 nights a week you were going out having a great time. You'd go on vacations, make some trips to some really nice warm spots every February. Really be able to live it up, enjoy life. And everything was great. And then as the years wore on, you kind of got tired of each other. All those things that were funny in the beginning, they weren't so funny anymore. All of those jokes that the first few times you heard them that were funny, they weren't really funny anymore. Things just started to get stale. And year after year, you'd find yourself going, it's okay. But am I really going to be able to do better? I stay with this relationship because it just works. It's good enough. And you always have people that tell you, right? Never, stay with somebody that you can just live with. You want to be with somebody that you can't live without. And that's the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers right now. They're that relationship that was so fun in the beginning. It was lively. Parties. A lot of good times, great pictures in front of some, national monuments, flying all over the world. It was wonderful. And then all of a sudden, that person kind of changes a little bit. And it's just not so much fun anymore. That's the Packers and Aaron Rodgers right now. They just can't quit each other. The Packers can't quit him, and I have to wonder if he's the, willing participant in the other side of this relationship that's just so comfortable. You ever hear that in relationships? You just get comfortable with each other. In the beginning, the first few years together, you wouldn't think of farting in front of your girlfriend, right? Oh, by the time it's 6-7 years in, now you're just going to the bathroom with the door open. You don't even care. Doesn't even matter. That's the Packers and Aaron Rodgers right now. And Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's now going to the bathroom with the door open and not afraid to rip a fart while sitting on the couch next to you watching the movie. Or dare we even say, the old Dutch oven in the bedroom when you got the covers on you and you're sleeping and everything's sound asleep and then you smell, oh God, no. See, you wouldn't dare do that in the first few years of the relationship. It's still new. It's still fresh. You respect each other. You wouldn't dare do that to somebody you respect. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't really respect the Packers anymore. Yet they stay in the abusive relationship. Brian Gutekunst is the general manager of the team. And on Friday, he met with the media and talked about the relationship that he's in.
Wants to come back, he'll be here. He's said multiple times this year that he doesn't think it'll be just his decision. Do you guys want him as your quarterback next year?
Yeah, like I said in the bye week, I think I want all these guys back. That's part of that. He's certainly going to take some time. I think that's fair. And as we work through this, I think as he takes his time, kind of makes his decision just on his playing career in general, then we'll get together and move forward that way.
Ryan, he just had his least productive season of his career. He had 3 different injuries. He turns 40 next year. Why would you want him back? What are you seeing that would make you feel that way?
Well, certainly this year was, I think he was dealing with some moving pieces, some injuries and things like that. It wasn't a great year offensively for us as a whole. But, you guys saw as well. He still can play at a very high level. I really like the way he led us. So, again, I think as we move forward over the next month or so, we'll, start putting these things together and see how that transpires.
To clarify, you think it is his decision in terms of coming back if he wants to be back?
We made a really big commitment to him, last offseason, so I think as we did that, it wasn't certainly for just this year. So we'll, like I said, he's going to take his time and the communication will be, pretty constant as we move forward.
Here's the problem. $100 million in dead cap space. Again, I've met people. I've met men, I've met women who are in relationships, and they're in those relationships because it's comfortable. I'm well taken care of. The money, the money's flowing in. I get to be a housewife or a house husband as it is. It's not perfect, but nothing is. I could deal with it. I could live with it. That's the Packers and Aaron Rodgers right now. They're that stagnant relationship that you're just staying in because it's comfortable. That's exactly what they are. They're the stagnant relationship you're staying in just because it's comfortable. Rodgers got, 55 or 60 million reasons to stick around for next year. Although he says it's not necessarily the money that'll keep him there. How many people are running out to grab a 40-year-old quarterback, even if it's Aaron Rodgers? At this stage of his career, and knowing the sort of cantankerous guy that he's become at this stage of his career, you think there's going to be that many teams lining up? There might be a couple. There might be a couple of contenders that feel like, hey, for 1 year, we'll deal with it. But Gutekunst has basically gone out and said, that's the money. Listen, with the current roster they have assembled around him, the Packers aren't winning anything with Aaron Rodgers. This is a team that's okay, and if he's healthy for a full season, they might still win 10 games. They might still be a playoff team. But if they had gotten into the postseason and played San Francisco, they would have gotten dismantled. If they had played Philadelphia, they would have been destroyed. They would have been embarrassed. It would have been an embarrassing time for Aaron Rodgers in this postseason. If they had squeaked in and had to play one of these really good teams that are at the top of the conference. And the reality is, you've basically said, we think Jordan Love is garbage. Because if you had any confidence that he was the next guy up for your organization, he wouldn't have just been playing next year. He would have been playing when Rodgers was hurt, and they could have rested him up, gotten him healthier faster, and maybe you wouldn't have lost 4 or 5 in a row like you did. So the Packers have already made it clear. Part of the reason they're sticking with Aaron Rodgers, they ain't got a backup plan. They don't have anybody else they can put at that position for next year. Oh, and they owe him a ton of money. So they basically boxed themselves in to having to stay in a bad relationship. They got to stay in that abusive relationship, which is Rodgers bashing the organization anytime he wants, saying whatever he wants on Pat McAfee's show because nobody's going to call him out on it. I mean, they're just totally boxed in. And there's no reason why it'll change next year. Because as an organization, they've also shown time and time again that they're not willing to go out and get the receivers to put around them to help elevate them. So what's the point at this point? Rip off the Band-Aid. Find out what you have in Jordan Love. They're not going to do it. They'll stay in the abusive relationship. NBA live betting and more next on The Cash In. Bum, 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 bum. Alex? Okay. What? No, it wasn't on during the first segment. Okay. Wake up call. What'd you say? Oh, did you? So this is Alex in Connecticut. And what's he want to talk about? Okay. Yeah, I didn't even give out the number yet, which is kind of odd. I might leave them there because sometimes when I get calls like that, I worry they might be set up calls. Does he sound like a crank caller or? Yeah, I would say keep him out. Coming up in 15 minutes, my man, Scott Seidenberg, joins the show. Get some thoughts with him and see what's on his mind when it comes to NFL Super Wild Card Weekend. So that's coming up about 15 minutes from now. Stay tuned for that. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number. 800-224-2004. You can tweet at us as well at the back page. Again, on Twitter, hit me up at the back page. Get some thoughts on a whole slew of things with Scott Seidenberg. We love talking all things gambling with him. And, yeah, I got to say this. Last night, we gave you a live bet. And I take pride in giving you guys winners when it comes to live betting. And we've done really well with it this season on the show. In the NBA. But last night, you want to talk about like crazy lightning strike odds. That's kind of what you got last night when the Lakers and Mavericks played. So just to tell you, 228.5, the under. We said take 228.5, the under early in this basketball game. First, I think it was still the first quarter when we told you to take under 228.5 on that game. And as the game played out, we were looking brilliant because this game wasn't even going to come close to 228.5. Except there was one problem. The game got close late. And anybody knows by now, the enemy of the under is overtime. So what you got in that situation was a game that went to overtime. 101-101. But even with a 101-101 going to overtime, 228.5 is still very safe because they only play 5 minutes of overtime. The possessions are at a premium. Time is being milked off the clock in those situations. So getting a 228.5, even with overtime, we felt good about the pick. And then the unthinkable happened. Then we didn't just go to one overtime. We went to a second overtime. And now you're doomed. Second overtime was basically the death knell in our pick last night. And all you got to look at for any reason as to why we wound up going to a second overtime was Luka Doncic.
Luka steps back, a three for the tie. Good! Luka Doncic knocks it at 108.
Yep. And then he did it in overtime, too.
Doncic takes the pass from the right, now attacks the basket, lays it in to put the Mavs back in front.
97.1 The Freak had the call, one of our great affiliates of the cash-in in Dallas. But the problem isn't just Doncic. The problem isn't just Luka having another Luka Doncic type game. A triple-double and, putting up these absurd video game phone numbers. That's not the problem. The problem is that you had 7 missed calls in the final 2 minutes and overtime of that Lakers-Mavericks game. I mean, you couldn't have officiated the game worse if you were these guys if you had your eyes closed. That's how bad they were. Let's start with a non-call on LeBron James' potential game winner in the first overtime period. Yeah. If they call the foul where there was a foul, LeBron gets 2 free throws, game probably ends. And we don't wind up with a second overtime. And the game doesn't wind up going over 228.5. 7 incorrect calls in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and the 2 overtimes between the Mavericks and the Lakers. What happens if the Lakers miss the playoffs by a game? What happens if they miss the play-in game by that much? There were so many blown calls in that game. It should be, I don't want to say fireable, but officials should be fined. There's got to be some sort of punishment for officials blowing calls as badly as they did in this game. But there isn't. Slap on the wrist, we move on. And this is the thing about the NBA. You know what? In the NFL, you've got two challenges. You've got scoring plays challenge. You have a situation where you're able to go and look at plays in the final 2 minutes. You have all sorts of possibilities to correct potential wrongs in the NFL. Turnovers, touchdowns, you name it. Baseball, you now have a situation where you could challenge a couple of times, late innings of games. You know, the umpires can go and look at it themselves. Home run, not home run. We're getting close to a point where we're going to have an automated strike zone to get that figured out and get that right. NHL, instantaneously they're able to check it. The World Cup, they're able to instantaneously check if a play is offsides or not, if it's a penalty kick or not, whatever. Tennis, immediate. You got the Hawkeye with the lasers and all that fancy schmancy equipment. You can tell if a ball is out or in a matter of seconds. But the NBA, we're good with human error. We're okay with, potentially screwing it up. And this is whether it's regular season or postseason. It doesn't matter. The league is okay with screwing it up just as much in the regular season as they are in the postseason. And there's a simple fix for it. If there's a questionable foul call, on most foul calls, somebody's going to be going to the line anyway. And it takes them a good 10 or 15 seconds before the guy's able to get to the line, shoot his free throws. In that amount of time, you should be able to have somebody back in New York. It's not much to throw an extra referee in New York for every game going on that night. Foul is called? Okay. If it's not a foul, you buzz down to the official in the arena, or you buzz down to the desk. You buzz down to the scorer's table. This can be fixed. You can eliminate a lot of the human error. I'm not talking about necessarily, I guess you could even have it in the case of travel calls and, discontinue and all these different things. But in that case, I think the game would take about 3.5 hours. But when you're talking about foul calls, especially in the final 2 minutes of a game, even if you just want to say we're going to do it in the final 2 minutes of a game and overtime, why wouldn't you if you're the league? There's zero impetus for them to fix this problem. There is zero impetus for them to try and correct what is correctable. And instead, you're going to get more of the same. And it makes it very difficult sometimes. I sit here and I'll tell anybody, I think the easiest money to make in sports betting is live betting on the NBA. But if you put a lot of money, and I didn't, by the way, this isn't me getting mad because I lost some large wager on this game. I'm mad because I like giving out winners for free on this show every night doing the live betting thing during NBA games. But if somebody got screwed, if you lost a lot of money on the live betting last night, if you went to your local sports book or even your bookie down the street who's going to be breaking your ankles now because Luka hit 2 game-tying shots, one in regulation and one in overtime, and the official screwed you if you had the Lakers. I think if you just even had the Lakers on the money line bet when they're down big early in the game and you're getting them at plus 500 or plus 600, you could have made a fortune last night, depending on how big you went. And for some people who make sports betting their living, last night was a tough pill to swallow. And the league, I'd almost rather the league not put out the 2-minute report. I don't want to know how you screwed up. I want to know how you're going to fix it. There's just no motivation to do it. Officials also should have whistled Luka Doncic for a loose ball foul for contacting Wenyen Gabriel's arm after the foul should have been called on LeBron James when he went to the basket late in the game. It's as bad as it gets. And again, what's the league going to do about it? No big deal. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You want to tweet at the show? Go ahead. Hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Scott Seidenberg. His living is sports betting. He's with pregame.com. He joins us on the other side. Talk about wild card weekend in the NFL. Where are the good picks? He's going to tell us. See what he thinks of this NBA live betting disaster last night, too. It's the Cash In. I'm Jason Page. This is SportsMap Radio. Yeah, that's when you wish you had caller ID. Jesus. Yeah, you got to look out for those things, unfortunately. You're the last line of defense, really.
The late night
Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it with Scott Seidenberg, who I just watched let out a big yawn. What are you, sleepy bear over there? You going to be all right?
Technically it's 10:30 on the East Coast, so I guess it's late.
I guess it is. I guess for you it is. I would think the night is still young for you. You're still viral. You're viral? Viral, not viral. If you're viral, that's another problem. I mean, if you stay out too late, you might catch something and you might become viral. But you know what I mean? You're still viral. You're still lively. You're not like me and taking naps for 2 hours every day. I mean, you're still young. The night should still be young for you right now.
It is young, and full disclosure, it's only 7:30 here in Vegas, and I will be departing my house in about an hour and a half. So,
Fair enough. I was just saying, though, real quick, because my segments are shorter now in this new clock, which is driving me nuts. It's just talk about bad beats of bad beats. I've got to vent to somebody. I mean, you have the Lakers. You have the under 228.5 live bet that you make last night, if you're me, on that Lakers game against the Mavericks. Mm-hmm. And you got your audience all fired up. It's 101 at the end of regulation. You're thinking, okay, fine. One overtime, we're going to be fine. There's no way it goes to oh my God, it goes to a second overtime. As somebody who does this for a living as you do, try and explain to me how you don't just give up religion, give up everything when you have a loss like that.
Because you're going to have another one like that. And you'll have another one, and you'll have another one. You take the bad beats in stride with the good wins. And if you're consistently beating the closing number, or you're not, damaging your bankroll, you're going to be successful in the long term.
See, that's the problem for the casual gambler, though. That kind of loss could send you running. It could send you running for the exits.
Look, I had the over in the Gonzaga game last night. There were 83 points scored in the first half, and it didn't go over. The live total at halftime was 16 points higher than the pregame total. Turned the game off. Thought it was a win.
Hey, before I get to the wild card weekend games, if I'm looking at a good, value bet for conference AFC championship winner, to me, it feels like it has to be Cincinnati at plus 400. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. That's the only way to look if you're looking for value, because you obviously don't want to play the top two favorites in the Bills and the Chiefs. The other long shot that I would consider if I was looking for a play on an AFC championship team would be the Chargers. And as much as I hate Brandon Staley, I am going to have to say that the Chargers offer the best value because, first off, they're favored to win this game coming up tomorrow. So right off the bat, you're expecting them to win, even though I'm taking the Jaguars in the teaser. But still, they're favored in this game. Yet then you have to look at the path. If they win that game, they match up really well with the Kansas City Chiefs, who they lost to twice this year by a field goal, having fourth quarter leads in both of those games. And the ability to only play one of the big three teams in the AFC is a benefit. So, it's like the Bills. If you bet the Bills, they have to play the Bengals and the Chiefs in order to win the AFC. Same thing with the Bengals. They have to beat the Bills and the Chiefs. The Chargers would just have to beat, it's an easier path is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's run through these games real fast. Seahawks and 49ers. I'm not a fan of big spreads. This one's just under that line that I hate of 10 points. 49ers minus 9.5. This feels like it's got route written all over, but it also feels to me like a game that's going over the 42.5. Am I wrong?
How much is Seattle going to score? How much do you think they're going to score?
I think they could score enough. They're going to give up points.
See, that's the thing.
49ers at home with Brock Purdy are averaging 36 a game.
Yes, and you have to look at the 49er defense, though, which has been absolutely incredible. In the last game that they played against each other in Week 15, that was a Brock Purdy game. Yeah, he was solid, 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also didn't even practice that whole week because Kyle Shanahan wanted to give his team rest because that's how banged up and injured they were. But Seattle just had 6 points for most of the game until they got a garbage time touchdown And if you take that garbage time out of the equation, 6 points and only about 200 yards of offense prior to the garbage time score, I just don't know how much Seattle's going to score on this San Francisco defense. And you look at what the Niners have done, 10 straight wins with an average margin of victory of 16 points.
So you like the minus 9.5 then?
I would lay the wood in this one. I absolutely would. They're number one rankings on defense in really every statistical ranking. It's just, to me, I know you can look at the point spreads this weekend and say, oh, well, if Miami beats Buffalo, that would be the biggest surprise because they're a 13.5-point dog,
right,
as opposed to a 9.5 or a 10-point dog. But I would be utterly shocked if Seattle won this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Chargers and Jaguars. You know, look, I have Patrick McEnroe coming on the show in the next hour. His upset special is the Jacksonville Jaguars to win on Saturday in that wild card matchup. I don't know how much of a huge upset that would be, considering it's only a 2.5-point spread. But
and they're home.
And they're at home. But give me your thoughts on the Jags at home against the Chargers.
So full disclosure, I already played the Jaguars in a teaser. It's the perfect long teaser because you can get them through the 3 and through the 7. So if you find another dance partner, i.e., like a 7-point teaser with the Bengals or a 7-point teaser with the 49ers, taking the Jaguars up north of 3 and north of 7 is a perfect, advantage teaser play. I think the Chargers win this game, though. I think it's a close game because I could see Jacksonville, as well as they've played, keeping this close and actually have a chance to win this game. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is how healthy the Chargers defense has gotten over the past several weeks. And in fact, since their bye week in week 8, the Chargers are the number 2 pass defense in DVOA in the NFL. And the Jaguars are a bottom 5 pass defense. And that plays right into the strength of Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense. Even without Mike Williams, they just can't defend the pass. If you're looking for an attractive prop bet in this game, I would take the over on Austin Eckler receptions. He had 8 the last time these two teams played.
It's a good one. Dolphins and Bills, the 13.5. Again, I'm not a fan of huge spreads, backdoor covers. But again, if there was a big spread I was going to play, it would be Buffalo. It's hard to imagine Miami being able to score all that much. We've seen what they look like with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Your thoughts?
And Skylar Thompson's not 100% healthy either. So it wouldn't surprise me if we actually get a Mike Glennon appearance in this game. Here's the thing. I look back at last year's wild card game where the Bills dismantled the Patriots 47-17. And I don't see how this one's any different. The Bills it's been an emotional season. Not just the DeMar Hamlin situation. They've dealt with 2 big snowstorms in the area, one having to move one of their games to Detroit, another one just preventing them from getting into the facility all week and having to shovel out their homes and whatnot. It's just been a trying year for Buffalo, but now the playoffs are here. They have their eyes set on this rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs, taking revenge for the 17 seconds last year. Nothing's going to stand in their way. Not the Miami Dolphins, certainly.
The glam pick feels like the Giants. Everybody's on that New York bandwagon. They're almost acting like the Giants won that game against the Vikings several weeks back instead of Caleb Joseph hitting a game-winning field goal from 60-plus yards. But here we are, the Giants +3 in Minnesota. It scares the death out of me that everybody loves the Giants.
Well, the Giants did win that game because the Vikings were 4.5-point favorites, and they only lost by 3. So the Giants did win that game. They won it for me, and they won it for anybody else who bet on the Giants plus the points. In that game, the Giants had 445 yards of offense against the Minnesota Vikings. If you look at all, at pregame.com, we have some proprietary rankings that we do when it comes to projected point margins and how much really each team should have won their games by, should have lost their games by. How good is each team? The Giants and Vikings are even teams. And the records don't show it, but the stats do. And the Vikings, probably the best home field in the NFL besides Lambeau Field, so they'll get the free 3 points. The line seems accurate to me. I have no problem with this being a 3-point spread. They're not going to hang a 3.5 because the books will get hammered by the Giants' money. They're not going to hang a 2.5 because they'll get hammered by Vikings' money. So 3 is the perfect line. It's not going to move off of the 3.
Okay.
I like the Giants in this spot. I think this is the game where all the money's going to come in, and everyone's going to get their money back because it's going to land exactly on the number. I think the Vikings win this one by 3. I love the way that Daniel Jones has played. I would take a look at Daniel Jones over rushing prop in this game.
Ooh, I like that. Real quick, 5 seconds or less. Cowboys or Buccaneers?
Tampa. Tom Brady, home underdog.
I agree.
The Cowboys over the last 5 weeks defense has looked terrible, allowing 27.2 points per game.
Scott Seidenberg, pregame.com. Check him out there. Have a great weekend, my friend.
See you later.
Scott Seidenberg, love him. Check him out, pregame.com. We're coming back. Wrap up this hour of the Cash In next. Dude, very cool. Thank you. Thank you to Scott Seidenberg for stopping by the show, the host of morning show at pregame.com. I forget the name of the show. I think it's the Morning Line or something like that. I forget the name of the show. Isn't that terrible? He's my friend. I should know the name of his show, shouldn't I? I should. It's a bad job by me. But Scott is terrific at what he does. He really is. He's so good at what he does in terms of sports betting and understanding the lines and understanding the figures behind it, but also getting the gut aspect of it. Because I think you have to do a combination of two things when it comes to sports betting. Yes, you have to look at trends and you have to look at numbers. But you also got to follow your gut sometimes. You know? I think that is so important when it comes to sports betting. And with live betting, I think it takes a lot, frankly, of the statistics out of, it takes a lot of the analytics out of it. Because every game is different. And every game trends different. And that's why we do so well when it comes to live betting. Unless the NBA screws up 7 calls in the final 2 minutes and in the 2 overtimes. And Luka Doncic hits 2 insane 3-pointers to send the game into overtime and then send the game into a second overtime. If those things don't happen, you're going to do okay. But like he says, if you consistently make it's very similar to poker. The way I look at sports betting, it's very similar to poker in this regard. If you play poker, you'll understand this. If you consistently make the right play, the mathematical correct play, and you play the game long enough, you'll beat the variance. The same thing goes in sports betting. If you consistently make the correct play and you bet a lot, and I'm not saying a lot in terms of the amount of money you bet, but I'm saying number of games you bet, number of bets you make, you're going to win in the long run. You'll beat the variance if you consistently make the right play. That's what's going to happen. The percentages eventually will level out. Just like in poker, there's going to be bad beats. Somebody's going to pull that 3-outer against you or that 2-outer against you when you're, a 90% favorite going to the river. Somebody's going to get lucky and pull that awful card that you just don't want to see. It'll happen, and it'll crush you in the moment. But if you consistently make the right play, you're going to win. Plain and simple. And it's the oldest saying. There's a reason why you see the same guys sitting at the final tables in a lot of these major tournaments that are held around the world. It's the same thing with sports betting. There's a reason that there is a number of guys out there, and you have to be careful and kind of wind your way through it. You've got to find the guys that consistently win and have a track record and can show you a track record of winning when it comes to sports betting. I'm not the guy that I would never sell picks to people. When we first went to go launch this show, and we called it the cash in, and we were going to talk about sports betting. I'm talking about it from the macro level. I'm not doing what guys like Scott Seidenberg are doing or RJ Bell are doing. And some of these really good professional gamblers are doing. I don't even call it, gambler's the wrong word. Professional handicappers are doing. I'm not doing that. So I'm not going to give you those kind of picks. We do the live betting because we understand how the NBA works. And you can beat an algorithm. It's much easier to win when it comes to live betting because you're just competing with an algorithm. You're just competing with a machine that isn't taking into effect. And a lot of times you'd say, well, God, I'm going against a machine. That means I'm going to lose. But it's not. Because that machine doesn't take into consideration whether a player has been injured during the game, whether somebody's not shooting well and the rotations might change. It doesn't catch up fast enough. And if you're quick to the draw, like we were last night, I'll say it again. We had a winning bet last night. It may have wound up losing because of Again, somebody basically pulling the 3-outer and getting screwed on the river, the equivalent of that. But we had a great pick last night. And most nights when we do our live betting on this show, we're giving you winners. But I don't do enough of the analytics to go and tell people, put your house on, the Giants +3 or the Buccaneers +2.5. I'll go through some of the numbers, and I'll give you my gut feeling. And look, we're 37-32 this year on Page's picks. 37-32. That's not terrible. You're not losing really much of anything except maybe a little bit of the vig, if anything, in that. 37-32 is not bad, and we're 7-1 in our last 8 Pages picks. Plus, we went 2-1 on our picks for the college football playoff championship game. And we're doing something different this week on Pages picks, which you'll catch at the start of the midnight hour on the East Coast, 9 p.m. On the West Coast. We're going to do something different on Pages picks tonight that we have done all season. We are picking every single wild card weekend game. All 6 of them, baby. We'll give you one pick from each game, whether it's the total or whether it's the spread. We will give you at least one pick from each game from wild card weekend. Super wild card weekend. So that's coming up in a couple of minutes. We haven't done anything on the live betting on the NBA side of things tonight. And right now, we're keeping tabs on the association. The late game tonight, Denver on the road in Los Angeles to take on the Clippers. It's the Clippers 48 and the Nuggets 43. Rockets and Kings in Sacto. It's a 2-game mini series there. It's Houston 49, Sacramento 44, 6:56 to go in the second quarter there. Orlando's on trailing Utah at the end of 3, 88-83 Jazz on top of the Magic. We'll keep an eye on all of those games. If a live bet jumps in that we like, we will make sure to give it to you. We got a special treat tonight. In the second hour of the show, I will be joined for much of the hour by ESPN's Patrick McEnroe, who does a terrific job on all things tennis. The Australian Open starts next week. We'll do a preview of that, but lest not your heart be troubled, we're not doing a whole hour of tennis. We'll talk some NFL football with him as well, get his thoughts on some of these wild card weekend games, get his opinion on that, because he doesn't just follow tennis. He loves to talk about all sports. So it'll be good to catch up with Patrick McEnroe, who will join us in the next hour of the program. We'll start talking to him around 7:15. Or I should say, 8:15 p.m. Pacific, 11:15 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to hang around for that and get his thoughts on what should be a very interesting men's draw in the Australian Open this year. The number 1 player in the world, Carlos Alcaraz, will not be participating. Naomi Osaka is not participating on the women's side. Novak Djokovic is being allowed into the country. Hooray. Arguably the best player of this generation will have a chance to compete in that Grand Slam event this year. Last year, he was kept in detainment and then shipped out of the country, deported because he was not vaccinated from COVID. He's still, as far as I know, he's still not vaccinated from COVID, but the country has basically changed its rules with regard to who can come into the country and what your vaccination status needs to be. The United States has not changed that policy as it relates to Novak Djokovic. So for people hoping to see Novak play in the United States this year, you might be waiting a while. And I won't lie, that kind of sucks for me because I live in Palm Springs, California, which is home to the 5th largest tennis tournament in the world. Outside of the 4 Grand Slam events, the BNP Paribas is actually the largest tennis tournament in the world. It's a full field event. It's 2 weeks long, and it attracts the greatest players in the world. And unfortunately, that will not include Novak Djokovic because the United States is still not letting him come into play. So, if you're somebody hoping to see Novak play in this spring and summer in the U.S., you might be waiting around a while unless the policy on COVID changes. And by the way, I'm not saying it should change. I thought he should have been vaccinated if it meant that much to him. The rules were simple. He chose not to get vaccinated. All right, we're coming back. Another hour of the cash-in right around the corner. Stay with us. This is SportsMap Radio. I definitely want the thing that I talked about with Rogers in the first segment. Definitely Scott Seidenberg. And then it's going to be basically 2.5 segments with Patrick McEnroe. Put those in, and then that should be then Paige's picks, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. Second hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. By the way, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, Justin Barbosa manning the board, engineering, and producing tonight. Good to have him along for the ride, and good to have you all with us. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number, 800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. Feel free to tweet at the show, at The Back Page, again on Twitter, at The Back Page. We talked in the first hour about the Packers' sort of dysfunctional, I can't leave you and you won't leave me relationship with Aaron Rodgers. That looks like it may carry on into next season unless Rodgers decides he wants out. What we didn't really talk about a ton, aside from the fact that the Packers obviously are, regardless of what they might say, they are clearly not enamored with Jordan Love. Because if they were, they'd tell the 40-year-old quarterback that really didn't play that well this year. And I'm sorry, you can sit here and talk about the thumb all you want. If you're playing in the games, you have to perform. Otherwise, don't play. But don't play badly, and then tell me about an injury. Which, by the way, I'm not saying he complained about the injury, because he did his best to keep it a secret from the press, even though we all knew he was dealing with that injury. Jordan Love's future was part of that press conference where Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, talked about this Jordan Love situation. Gutekunst hinted Rodgers would be the starter over Jordan Love if they're both on the team next year. Could also be talk about trades, but that doesn't seem very likely. The quote from Gutekunst on Jordan Love is, I definitely think he's ready to play. I think he feels that way. I think he's chomping at the bit. So, actions though. You know, I work with a bunch of different people in owning my own media company and owning this show. And I was talking to somebody on the phone today who was asking me about this, that, and the other thing involving my company. And I said, I'm at this point in my life, I'm an actions guy. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Just show me. And if they believed in Jordan Love, the Packers would be giving Jordan Love an opportunity to be the starting quarterback next year in Green Bay. But right now, he's basically the booby prize for Packer fans. He's basically going to be runner-up in anything concerning that organization. He is not the guy that they want to entrust this franchise to. Again, a team that lost at home against Detroit in the final game of the season with the opportunity to go to the postseason. They weren't good enough to beat them. And why wouldn't you give Jordan Love an opportunity next year? You suddenly think you're going to make so many upgrades that you're going to go from being an 8-win team this year to being a team that can compete for something with Aaron Rodgers next year? What? Compete to go to the postseason and get your doors blown off by the 49ers? Because that's the standard you have to achieve. It isn't about making the play. If you have Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback, and you're of the mindset that this guy that's almost 40 years old is good enough to still help you win a Super Bowl, then that has to be what you're trying to achieve. Making the playoffs next year, if you're the Green Bay Packers, should not and cannot be the goal. Getting back to the postseason is the goal. No, it can't be. For that organization, it can't be. It has to be about either going to the Super Bowl next year or finding out what Jordan Love is. What's more likely? This team being able to find out how good Jordan Love is with this young group of receivers and building him up, or the alternative, which is go with Aaron Rodgers with a shot to win the Super Bowl. You and I both know they have no shot to win a Super Bowl as currently comprised next season with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. None. Well, Jay, they're 1 year removed from being a team that was, a game away from the Super Bowl. That's absolutely true. But you know what? The teams around them got better, and they didn't. They went backwards. You tell me this is a blip in the radar? Next year they're going to be great? Sorry, not buying it. No reason to believe it. They don't make the right moves player personnel-wise. They let Devontae Adams go and totally misunderstood his value to that organization. But now they're going to get it right after all these years of getting it wrong from a player personnel standpoint. They're going to get it right now? Find out what you have in Jordan Love. Come on, you can do it. Don't be scared. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. The Packers have had so much winning over the years. Do you think that fan base is going to abandon them if they have a couple of years of struggling? I don't think so. Patrick McEnroe will join us coming up in 10 minutes on the show. 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Patrick will join us for a couple of segments on the program tonight. Dave is in Connecticut, our good friend listening to the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. What's going on, Dave? Happy Friday. You got anything good planned for the weekend or what? Bertucci's. I can't remember the last time I went to a Bertucci's. Okay. Well, Tom Brady does the weekly podcast on Sirius XM. So that's a good 45 minutes of Brady every week. So I mean, I'm sure there's some guys, but your point is well taken. But see, the problem is with the McAfee Aaron Rodgers thing is it can go both ways. It can cut both ways. You could say maybe we're not getting the real McAfee there. I would argue that we're probably more likely getting the real Aaron Rodgers, because the stories he's telling on that show sort of point to him being that guy that he sort of talks about when he's on the air with McAfee. Plus, I got to tell you, I'll tell you this. I always go back to this story that tells me everything I need to know about Aaron Rodgers. And it's the story of when I once was having lunch with a friend in the Bay Area who was friends with Aaron Rodgers and literally was texting with him while we were having lunch. And all Aaron was doing was bad-mouthing the crap out of Mike McCarthy, just trashing him via text message the entire lunch. And when I see stuff like that, I can't help but wonder if this is who this guy is. Oh, God. This would have been 2012. 2011 or 2012. Yep. I think people change as they get older, though. And look, I think there's a sense of entitlement that comes, and I'm not saying this makes him any worse than anybody else, because I think a lot of people, when you get into a position of power and fame, there's a great documentary going on right now on CNN about Rudy Giuliani. That's a mini series they're doing, where it's like, my God, this guy was like mayor of the United States basically after 9/11, and now you look at him with makeup and whatever dripping down the side of his face, sounding like a maniac on Newsmax interviews, and you sit there and go, well, what the hell happened? Power, fame, it can corrupt. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Yep. No, you're right. Dave, appreciate the call. We're up against it here at the top, or I should say at the end of the segment. But thanks for the call. Always appreciate it. Dave in Connecticut. All right, Patrick McEnroe on the other side from ESPN. Stick around for that. Everybody needs to be humbled. Went through points in my career where I needed to be humbled. Patrick McEnroe of ESPN joins us next on the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. All right. Continuing on this Friday edition of the show, and as I promised yesterday, I'm a man who delivers.
Still a long way to
Continuing on this Friday edition of the show, and as I promised yesterday. So, when you're coming back here, just a word of advice, because these segments are all hard times, so we have to be out by a certain time. Make sure, start the music, play the rejoin right away. Don't wait long, because we have 11 minutes, and the interview is 10:30, so I have to make sure it times out correctly. Yeah, just boom. Music, wait a second, 2 seconds tops, and then play the rejoin. Continuing on. Continuing on this Friday edition of the show, and as I promised yesterday, I'm a man who delivers. The great Patrick McEnroe does a things tennis for ESPN. Sometimes you'll even see him over on CNN because he doesn't have enough things to do on his plate. He wants to go and be a contributor over there as well. So now, see, this is why I can't get on these networks anymore, because all you former athletes, all you big time guys, I see Stephen A. Smith on MSNBC last night. Like, you people don't have enough. You can't share some of the crumbs with us.
How about Newsmax? That's my new spot. Believe it or not, I'm sure that's not on your favorites list as a political station. But I've actually been doing a lot more there than I've been doing lately on CNN.
I cannot even entertain the idea. I do Fox News from time to time, and that's enough for me. Like, I can do that, and that's it. Like, that's as far. And it's only because I know the guy who does the morning show, Todd Pyro, who does the show before Fox and Friends. Other than that, I can't. I just nope. I did CNN for the first time though.
Okay, very nice.
Unfortunately, it was for the Damar Hamlin story, but
yes,
I did do my first CNN hit last week, which was kind of interesting to say the least. All right, let's talk about the tennis here. Djokovic, Kyrgios, looks like they got the toughest draws if we're looking at this thing, right?
Actually,
by the way, I'm talking about the Australian. Well, let me just say, I'm talking about the Australian Open, which you'll see Patrick covering on ESPN.
No, I actually think Nadal, who's now the top seed with Alcaraz withdrawing because of an injury, I actually think his draw is pretty difficult. I mean, Djokovic to me is a huge favorite going into the tournament, whatever his draw is. It doesn't matter to me because he's been that good since the U.S. Open, which of course he wasn't able to play because our country's still not allowing unvaccinated people into the country, of which he's at least the only top 100 player, maybe top 200 player that hasn't been vaccinated in men's tennis. Tennis Sandgren, who's an American player, who was at one point ranked in the top 100. He's the only other guy off the top of my head that I know that's not been vaccinated, but he's dropped out of the top 200. Anyway, Nadal and Djokovic actually come in with some physical questions. Nadal's, from what I'm hearing, still struggling a little bit with the abdominal injury, which he suffered at Wimbledon last year, and he couldn't play against Kyrgios in the semifinals. And then it was Kyrgios-Djokovic in the final, which was a competitive match, but never really in doubt, in my opinion, that Djokovic was going to win it. So Rafa's still, it sounds like, coming in with a little abdominal injury. Djokovic had a hamstring issue in one of the warm-up tournaments, which he ended up winning. But I think he'll be fine. He was able to play a 3-hour match in the final there after he tweaked a hamstring against Daniil Medvedev, who's another guy who could make a big run here. So to me, it's Djokovic's still tournament to win. He's going for his 22nd, which would tie Rafa with 22 majors. He just tied him with his 92nd singles title in Adelaide. So they're neck and neck. But even with the younger guys coming up, as I mentioned, Alcaraz not playing, Kyrgios stepped up last year in a big way. Tsitsipas is the 3 seed. Ruud is the 2 seed. I still find it hard to believe that anybody's going to be able to beat Djokovic on that court where he's dominated over the years. And he's coming in with a major chip on his shoulder after what happened last year when he was deported from the country.
It really is something, though, because it's not. There's obviously the Nadal's, Djokovic, Alcaraz. You talk about the upper echelon of the sport right now. But you mentioned the likes of a Medvedev, a Ruud, a Tsitsipas, a Rublev, Aliassime, all of these guys. It really does go to show you that if you are a Nadal or Djokovic and you find your way to the final in this thing, you're really working to get it now. It's not like maybe 5 or 6 years ago where it just felt like these guys were cruising and coasting from the opening round to the final. It's just not that way anymore.
No, it's not. You're right. And it's also why they're much more susceptible, Jason, in 2 out of 3 set matches, in which is the rest of the tour. And you see them get picked off in those tournaments pretty frequently now. But then they used to dominate those tournaments as well. You know, the Indian Wellses, the Miamis, the Romes, the Monte Carlos. Now they're not winning. When I say they, I mean Djokovic and Nadal specifically. They're not winning those tournaments as easily as they did 5, 6, 7 years ago. But in the majors, when it's best of 5, when physical fitness is more important, mental fitness is more important, just the experience of playing in those situations when you can lose a set and you still got a lot of wiggle room. Whereas if you lose a set in the BNP Paribas Open in Palm Springs and it's 6-4 and all of a sudden you're down 2-1, you start thinking about the finish line. And in a major, you don't think about that because you got a couple sets to work with. And over the years, particularly these guys have gotten older, you're right. It's not a cakewalk. I mean, Nadal got picked off by Tiafoe at the U.S. Open this past year. Djokovic can be threatened by these guys. But at crunch time, best of 5 sets, if those guys are healthy, it's still a monumental task to beat them in a major, particularly one that's not their favorite surface. So for Djokovic, his favorite is really anything other than clay. For Rafa, he's played well on hard courts. He's a great hard court player. He can be picked off on that surface and certainly on grass, but on clay, I mean, it's almost like if the French Open started next week, he's a solid favorite again to win another French Open. It's amazing that they can keep doing it year after year.
Even Alcaraz, though, you'd say solid favorite. You wouldn't put Alcaraz up there with him?
I would put Alcaraz in the mix, just like I put right now. I put Tsitsipas in the mix. Okay, I put Ruud in the mix. But if you're telling me if it's Alcaraz against Djokovic, okay, in an Australian Open semifinal or final right now, to me, Djokovic is the favorite. If you're saying the French Open semifinal, final, Nadal against Alcaraz, Nadal's the favorite. Is he a huge favorite? No. But if they play in a 2 out of 3 in Madrid, it's in a 50-50 match. But in best of 5, when it's on the line, when you have to expect, Jason, that these guys are going to bring the kitchen sink in these events.
Sure.
It's not to say they're not going to go all in, in Madrid or Indian Wells. I mean, they're going to play hard, but to beat them at this event in a major, it takes a Herculean task. It can be done. Tsitsipas has done it a couple times, but to do it, and especially when you get down to the semis or the finals, then it becomes even more difficult.
Give me a dark horse. Give me somebody that, a lot of people don't hear about that could make a run at this tournament. I've seen some people mention a Jack Draper, guys like that. I mean, give me somebody.
By the way, that's the reason I mentioned Nadal's got a tough draw because he plays Jack Draper in the opening round. Then he could play Nakashima, a good young American.
We saw Nakashima at the U.S. Open, yeah.
Yeah, he's a tough player. Not to mention the fact that you've got Tiafoe in the same section of the draw as Nadal. And Tiafoe is actually one of the guys that I think could make a big run. I like Sebastian Korda, the other young American who I believe by the end of his career may be the best of these young Americans. And that's saying a lot because you got Taylor Fritz, who's seeded, I think he's 7 or 8, I think he's 8. So he's in the same section potentially to play Ruud, which is a good draw for Fritz, actually. I wouldn't be surprised to see Fritz make a run to the semis where he could end up against Djokovic, who's in the bottom half of the draw, along with Ruud. And then you've got Nadal in the top half of the draw. As you mentioned, Kyrgios is in the mix. You've got Tsitsipas in that half of the draw. So I think Kyrgios is in with Djokovic. So that would be, an unbelievable match down under. Kyrgios, though, coming in undercooked, which is not unusual for him, meaning not playing a lot of matches. Yeah. The big question for Kyrgios, Jason, is if he's healthy, which we hope he is. He did pull out of a couple of the warm-up tournaments. Has he been able to do enough work off the court fitness-wise so that if he gets into a third, fourth round, his quarterfinal tough 4 or 5 setter, A, does he have the endurance to win that match? And then B, more importantly, can he come back and do it again? Wimbledon, he was able to do it. But remember, on grass, generally speaking, the points are quicker. You get more cheap points on your serve. Right. So it's not as physically taxing as it will be for him if he makes a big run, to get to the quarters or semis. That's a little bit what happened to him at the US Open. He beat Medvedev, had a great match there, and then sort of came out the next match a little bit flat. And that's going to be a key for him to see if he can bounce back and recover.
We'll come back. I want to take a quick break, hold you over for a moment. I want to come back and get your thoughts on a couple other sports things and maybe make you make a prediction on this Australian Open. Continuing with Patrick McEnroe of ESPN. Stick around, more to do on the other side. Hear me. What's going on with my mic? Oh, that was weird. The next segment should time out.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little wary of it,
Exactly.
Jason. I sense you are too. I can see where you're going. It's like all these Giant fans
The
are coming up.
same. I'll be tossing to it.
This was perfect. What a great draw.
I'll be tossing to his first answer
I'm
there.
like, hold
Rolling along, our conversation continues with ESPN tennis analyst, sports commentator Patrick McEnroe, our guest. All right, how about some NFL playoff talk, Patrick? And start with the Giants, because they seem to be the glam pick for everybody in this postseason, in this wild card round. And that just scares the bejesus out of me.
You are too. I can see where you're going. It's like all these Giant fans are coming up here. I live in New York. You know, that Giant, this was perfect. What a great draw. You know, they got to play the Vikings. I'm like, hold on a second. I mean, I understand, the Vikings aren't a 13, 14 win team. I mean, they are, but are they really? But they're still pretty good, and they still got home field advantage. And Kirk Cousins, he's been good this year. He's been really good. I think the Vikings are going to squeak it out. I predicted 27-23. I'm going to stick with that. I think it's going to be a tight game, and definitely the Giants have a chance, and they definitely have a chance, partly because the coach has done a heck of a job. He's got them believing. Danny Dimes has stepped up a bit, so I'm happy to see that, because I like what he brings to the table. And my other team, the Jets, which is actually my favorite team, has just been a debacle the last half of the year. So talk about trying to find a quarterback. They'll have to do that. But I like the Vikings in a tight one. My upset special, though it's not much of a special, Jason, I think you would agree with me, is I'm going in the Hair Bowl down in Florida. I'm going with the Jags, over the Chargers in the all-hair quarterback bowl, that is, between Justin and Trevor. And I like the way the Jags have come, and I love how Lawrence has played the last 8 to 10 games of the season. I mean, his numbers are phenomenal. So I think even though they're a dog at home, which is surprising, right, for a playoff game, I think that's a slight upset. I mean, Niners win big. I mean, Brock is unbelievable. I think they have the best all-around team in the NFC. And then we've got.
What do you think on Monday night? What do you think on Monday night?
I think it's a swan song for Brady. I think it's over. Yeah, I mean, I think he'll.
Yeah, I think they win. He's never lost to Dallas in his career.
He never lost to the Falcons either, and they just lost to them. But I understand he played a quarter and a half. But this isn't the same Bucs team. I mean, even for last year, it's not. He doesn't have the weapons. He's not getting the protection that he needs. He's not going to be able to scramble around the pocket. Maybe he'll try to go somewhere next year where he can get that around him, because obviously when he has that, Brady's still damn good. He's 45. It's incredible. And everybody's sort of knocking the Cowboys. That's like the in thing to do. Oh, they're going to fire McCarthy. Jerry's going to let him go. He just said, I guess in the last 24 hours, like he's safe. His job is safe. That's just probably to try to calm him down before this game. And, we know about Prescott. He can be really good, and he cannot be that good like he was last week. And it's a playoff game, and he's never done it in the playoffs. But I think the Cowboys are just too good all around. And I'm not buying the Bucs. I mean, I know Brady's Brady, but he's not Brady, like the same Brady he was, God, could we say 20? I could say 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's incredible. But he can be great, but he needs a lot of help around him. And I just don't think he has the same help this year. I love the Niners. I mean, I think they'll win big over Seattle. We got the Bills are going to win big. I mean, now Miami without Tua, they got no shot in that one. And then you get the number 3, Love, going there. That's got a route written all over it. What am I missing? I'm missing one game. What's the other game we're missing?
Well, Buffalo, we said Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Oh, Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati big,
I like
too.
Cincinnati big too.
Yeah, because Lamar looks like he's out. I mean, that to me is a tighter game. But they got a little chip on their shoulder too, after, feeling like they got screwed a little bit by the NFL. But you got to love Burrow. You got to love, Josh Allen, and you got to love Mahomes. And, come next week for the Chiefs. I mean, to me, they're the 3 best quarterbacks right now in the business.
It's interesting. I was talking about this the other night with somebody that you don't know this, and I didn't know this till the other day. Stetson Bennett had that 6 touchdown performance in the college football championship game. And I was saying to somebody, his life, you think about the arc of, a professional football player or a football player's life. And I said, it'll never get better than that for him. Back-to-back championships, 6 touchdowns in the championship game, a rout of TCU. And you think about it, because whatever happens from here, short of winning a Super Bowl, it's all downhill. It's all downhill at like 27 years old for this guy. He is a little bit older, but I was thinking about it. And then I went and did some research. Joe Montana is the only guy to win a college football national championship and a Super Bowl, other than Joe Namath, which it wasn't technically a college football championship then. But I never knew that other than Joe Montana, nobody had ever won both a national championship in college football and a Super Bowl. And you just mentioned Joe Burrow. And the reason I bring this up is he's probably got the best chance to be the next guy to do it because he won a national championship with LSU. And he's got a damn good shot to win a Super Bowl someday.
I think he's got a great shot, and he's got a really good team around him, as you said. And that wouldn't shock me at all. But it's I mean, I'm not even sure Stetson Bennett's is he even going to try to play in the pros? I mean, I guess
he's going to be, they're saying mid to late. They're saying late second day, maybe early third day.
Okay. All right. So I'll give it a shot.
He'll get a shot.
Listen, just stay in Athens, stay in Georgia. I mean, he can make more, just be the guy then. You're the guy.
You're eating for free forever in Athens, man.
Delivered back-to-back national championship. Are you kidding me?
I agree.
That was, and let's just talk about that for a second, because I mean, that was just a complete beatdown. I mean, from the start to the finish, that was rough to watch. Listen, TCU deserved it. They beat Michigan. Deserved to be in there with a shot. But that sort of makes the argument, doesn't it, that people have been talking about to open it up to, 8 teams or 12 teams or whatever it is, because at least, of course, TCU could get in. But look, if Alabama were in there, even USC, you would think that it'd be less of a chance of a complete blowout, once you got to the end of the tournament. Of course, it's always possible. It happens in tennis. I mean, so it can definitely happen.
The Big 12 will never get the benefit of the doubt again from that committee. I know it shouldn't carry over one year to the next, but you know as well as I do, that committee, as much as TCU was embarrassed and the Big 12 was embarrassed, that committee winds up being embarrassed because they put TCU in that Final Four. And they might have beaten Michigan, but they got beat so bad on the game's biggest stage, that selection committee is embarrassed.
Yeah, I heard someone say this, which I thought was a very good point, which was that it should have been Georgia against TCU in the first game, the semifinal game, 1 against 4, and then Michigan, Ohio State. But they said, "Oh, we don't want a rematch." Well, why not? I mean, why not have a rematch? Have a rematch in the NFL?
Yeah.
I mean, Baltimore and Cincinnati. So I think that that would have made for a great Michigan Ohio State game. It would have made, blowout city probably against TCU. Maybe it would have been a little closer if Georgia, hadn't been as prepared. And then you've got Georgia against, Ohio State arguably should have won the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly could have. I mean, they outplayed them. So maybe that's food for thought too.
Patrick McEnroe, our guest, ESPN, does a great job on the tennis, but can talk other sports as well, as he is known to do now on some of the TV networks as a talking head. Before I let you go, we started with tennis, finished with tennis. Naomi Osaka going to take the 2023 season off, obviously. Congratulations to her. She's pregnant, going to be having her first child. How hard will it be for her to come back when all is said and done?
I hope it won't. I mean, I don't think it'll be that hard. I mean, she's young. She's extremely fit. She is a great tennis player, Jason. I mean, I sat there, that year when she didn't come out of nowhere, but actually when she won the tournament out in your neck of the woods, the BNP Paribas Open, she sort of did come. I mean, I think she was like 60 in the world, and she beat like 5 top 10 players in that tournament. Then you fast forward to the US Open a few months later, and I'm sitting there. I actually had the day off, Jason, which is unusual at a major, for the women's final. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to sit home. I'm going to chill out here, watch on TV. And my twin daughters, I have 3 daughters, my twin daughters at that time, that was 5 years ago. So they were like 8 or 9, and they're not even big into tennis. And they're like, "Dad, we want to go to the final. We want to watch Serena." So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I get there, I get them in with the credential. There's no seats anywhere. And I go to the commentary booth, next to it. It's all overcrowded. And finally, someone at ESPN says, "Hey, no one's sitting in the courtside seats where I do the courtside." Mary Jo was there doing courtside. So we have like a few extra seats so you could go sit down there. I'm like, unbelievable. I go down there with my two twin daughters. They're like 8 or 9. I'm like, girls, you can't talk too much. Got to be quiet. We're literally, Jason, we're right behind the umpire's chair and Serena's chair.
Wow.
Okay? And here's the thing, the shit hit the fan, obviously, in the second set. But in the first set, and Osaka was up like 4-2, and one of my daughters says to me, they're like, Dad, Serena's going to lose. And I'm like, I think you're right.
Continuing on this Friday edition of the show, and as I promised yesterday, I'm a man who delivers.
But the point is, the only reason I tell that story is because it's fun, number one, but because my daughters, who know nothing about tennis, were just watching these two players and like, this one's better. I mean, Naomi Osaka right now is better than Serena. And it turned out they were right. And of course, then it turned out, the meltdown that Serena had in the second set marred the whole thing. She could win double-digit majors, Jay. She's got 4. She absolutely could. I would have said that a couple of years ago. So the point is, the only reason I tell that story
Our conversation continues with Patrick McEnroe of ESPN. Their fine tennis analyst, talking a little bit about watching Naomi Osaka with his kids at the U.S. Open a few years ago.
The point is, the only reason I tell that story is it's fun, number one, but because my daughters who know nothing about tennis were just watching these two players and like, this one's better. I mean, Naomi Osaka right now is better than Serena. And it turned out they were right. And of course, then it turned out, the meltdown that Serena had in the second set marred the whole thing. And a lot of people think that affected Osaka. When she's talked openly about her mental health issues and so on. But you got to remember, after that U.S. Open, she won another U.S. Open with the pandemic year.
Yep.
She won 2 Australian Opens, also on hard courts. And she was clearly the best hard court player on the planet. So I hope, to answer your question, that Naomi Osaka can find whatever she's looking to find, peace of mind, mental health, whatever it is that allows her to be a happy person. Because sometimes I got to be honest, I wonder, when I see her.
Yeah.
Number 2, that then she can transfer that into being a tennis player again. Because when I watched her play that at US Open, I'm like, this young woman was born to play tennis. I mean, she's that good of a player. She could win double-digit majors, Jay. She's got 4. She absolutely could. I would have said that a couple of years ago. So I hope that she can, has a successful pregnancy, has her baby. She said she wants to play in 2024 at the Australian Open. And I say, God bless you, Naomi. I wish you all the best. I hope that you can find happiness off the court and then bring it to the court. Because, I think we'd love to have her playing professional tennis at the highest level. She was brought so much natural energy and charisma to the game. She was sort of shy, but, spoke her mind in a refreshing sort of way.
Yeah.
So I feel bad that she's gone through all this, that she's had to go through herself mentally. And I hope she can come back and be happy and play tennis again.
Real quick, before I let you go, who wins on the men's side?
I think it's going to be Djokovic.
Okay.
I just think he's determined. I think it's like the perfect way to put the bow on this whole thing that happened last year. By the way, he still can't get into our country. He can't get to Indian Wells. He can't get to Miami. He can't get to, I think Canada, I think you could get into now. I'm not sure what the Canadian protocols are, but now at the moment he couldn't play the U.S. Open. So he's still going to have to deal with that. So I like him to win the Australian. I think that there's, Rafa, if he's healthy, he's in there. I like Tsitsipas, by the way. I think Tsitsipas is going to be around. I'm not going to say he's going to win it, but I'd be surprised if he's not in at least the semifinals of the tournament. And on the women's side, and obviously we have talked too much about that. It's not quite as wide open as it's been in past, with Swiatek a solid favorite. But I like some of the Americans. Coco, I think, is ready to make another big push. Can she win it? She can. I think she can. I think Keys and Collins also could make runs. And then you've got Rybakina, who won Wimbledon, if you remember last year, Jason, didn't get the ranking points. So she's seeded 22. And she's actually been drawn to face, I think it's Swiatek, fairly early, which is a complete debacle, because she should be seeded like 6 or 7.
Right.
Based on the fact that she didn't get the points from Wimbledon. But there's a bunch of women. You 10 to 12, 15 women that you kind of know are pretty good. They could win the tournament. Ons Jabeur is the 2 seed. She's certainly someone that's been knocking on the door. So it's pretty open on the women's side. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Swiatek, just because I think athletically she's far and away the best athlete playing right now in the women's game. And if she's on and if she's hot, it's almost impossible to stop her. But with the conditions down there, I think the courts are playing a little quicker. Pegula, by the way, of course, her parents own the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
She's had an amazing last year. She's a 3 seed, and she just beat Swiatek in one of the warm-up tournaments on a pretty fast hard court. I'd love to see her imagine the Bills and Pegula, making they win a couple games. She gets to the final of the Australian Open. That would be fun for Buffalo.
Yeah, it certainly would. Patrick McEnroe, listen, I always appreciate it. You're always generous with your time whenever I need it. So here's the bet. When Tom Brady and the Buccaneers win on Monday night, when you come out here for the BMP, which hopefully you will, you and I have to hit some tennis balls.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I got to take you to dinner, which I do that too.
Well, I mean, that's a given because
I'll hit balls. Yeah, we'll hit balls no matter what. And if Brady loses, like I suspect he will, I'm going to be running your ass all over that court, Jake. So be ready. So you better start practicing now.
All right. Sounds good. Patrick McEnroe, ESPN. Check him out there for the next 2 weeks during the Australian Open coverage. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Jason. Always.
I'm in a world of trouble. It gives me 2 months to get in shape if I'm going to play against Patrick McEnroe, who's like 10 years older than me, and he'll still probably run me off the court. What do you think, Justin? Do I got any shot against Patrick McEnroe? No, I don't think so. I last played tennis competitively in 1993. I played on my high school team 92 or 93. And I was playing varsity doubles, which tells you how good I was. Not very good. I mean, I'm all right. I got a decent serve. If he goes to my backhand side, I'm in a world of trouble. I don't even know how much I can run around. I got 2 bad knees, bad wrist, bad shoulder, bad ankle. I got bad everything. What did I just get myself into? Why would I challenge a guy that could still play tennis? He still plays in like some of the senior events and stuff. I'm in a world of trouble. Well, it'll make for a fun video anyway. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number. 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter as well, at the back page. Again, you can hit me up on Twitter at the back page if you're looking for me over there. Live NBA betting. Since we didn't get to do much of it this hour. Right now, Nuggets on top of the Clippers, 86-81, end of the third quarter. Interesting. 167 points scored in that game. 222.5 is the total. I would tell you wow, is this even possible? Wow. I'm sorry, I was just taken aback. The Kings and Rockets right now isn't even through the third quarter. And the Kings lead the Rockets 112-92. I mean, they've put up almost 200 points, and it's not even the fourth quarter yet. The live betting total on that game is 268.5. It's just not a number you're used to seeing when it comes to basketball games. But there it is, right in front of my eyes. It's dropping a little. It's 267.5 now. If I had a bet for you, though, it would probably be under 222.5 in that Nuggets-Clippers game right now. They're through 3 quarters in Los Angeles. 222.5 is the number. Let's go under on that. We'll make that an official cash-in wager for you. That number is high right now. You're going to need to see those teams score basically 57 points in the final quarter to get to that 222.5. And fourth quarter of basketball games, the scoring tends to tighten up. The possessions become longer, less transition baskets, especially in the final 4 or 5 minutes. So let's go under 222.5. Nuggets and Clippers, our live bet of the night here on the program. Take it, run with it, do whatever you want with it, but we're giving that to you. All right, we still got another hour of the cash in around the corner. Good news, Paige's Picks right around the corner, and this week we're doing something different. It's wild card weekend in the NFL. We're not just giving you 4 picks like we do every week during the regular season. We are giving you all 6 games. 37 and 32 on the season so far. We're going to give you all 6 games, one pick from all 6 games, either the total or with the spread. So stick around. We'll have that coming up for you. We are 7-1 in our last 8 games, by the way. 7-1. It's not too shabby. Certainly not embarrassing ourselves. So that is coming up. Don't move a muscle. Final hour of a Friday back page. I don't know why I keep saying that. Friday edition of the Cash In. Stick around. More to do. SportsMap Radio. The reason I say the Cash In, once in a while I'll say the back pages, the name of my old sports talk show was The Back Page. Every once in a while, I have a senior citizen moment. It's terrible. All right, so for the Pages picks, remember, we're doing the regular thing to start the hour, and then when I throw it to here's Pages picks, you play the imaging and the music, right? Okay, we're gonna nail this week. Yeah. Cool.
Next week in the Garden. Ron gambled. Randall made both of them pay for it. Count the bucket.
of a Friday/Saturday edition of the show. It's great to have you with us. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You can watch us right now over on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 is the name there. If you're not yet following us on TikTok, you're missing out. A lot of new content going up there every day. The Jason Page. Real simple to remember. The Jason, P-A-G-E. Keep an eye on the NBA games going on tonight. Right now, they are 7:55 to go, fourth quarter. Denver leading the Clippers 94-92. Our live bet of the night comes from that game. It is 222.5, the under 222.5. So we're sitting in a pretty decent position right now in that game. Nuggets lead the Clippers 94-92. We'll let you know what happens as that one sort of winds down. But we've talked about it so much on the show tonight. We've gone into the betting side of Wild Card Weekend with Scott Seidenberg. He's our 2-for-1 tonight. If you missed that in the first hour, we'll have it coming up for you here in about 30 minutes. We talked about it with Patrick McEnroe, who joined us on the show tonight. He, of course, from ESPN, does a terrific job on the tennis analysis, but also really can talk about anything from the all sports realm. So we got into it with him a bit. The only opinion you haven't gotten is the one that matters the most. That would be mine. It's time for my favorite thing we do on this show every week. It's time for Page's Picks. Yes! Yes! We are in business. That's what I'm talking about. Good stuff. All right, we are picking all 6 games this week for Wild Card Weekend. Normally we give you 4 winners from the NFL slate, but since it's Wild Card Weekend, it's the playoffs. We're going all out. 37-32 on the season for our NFL picks. 37-32, and we've won 7 of our last 8. We are cooking with gas. Game number 1. It's the first game of the weekend. Seahawks and 49ers in Santa Clara on Saturday afternoon. It's the line that really hasn't moved all week. San Francisco minus 9.5. They're minus 490 on the money line. Seahawks plus 385. I'd consider it a miracle if they won this game. 42.5 is the total. And right now, for me, it's the 49ers. I don't like big spreads. This one just comes in under that dreaded double digits that I can't stand. 49ers minus 9.5 is the pick for me at home against the Seahawks. I think this could wind up being a 3-touchdown game when all is said and done. That's game number 1. Game number 2 takes us to Jacksonville. Who would have thought we'd be saying that before the season started? Maybe our buddy Matt Verderam over at Fansided would have thought so. He picked the Jaguars to win that division, and they did. 47.5 is the total in the Chargers-Jaguars game, and I think it goes over 47.5. You might get some jitters early on, but I think we're going to get a bit of a shootout between Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. As Patrick McEnroe called it, the long-haired QB Bowl. No Mike Williams for the Chargers. I think the Jaguars win, but I think it's going to be close, so I wouldn't put my money there. I'd put it on the total at over 47.5. Game number 3 takes us to Buffalo, which is a long way from Miami, both weather-wise and a long way from Miami in terms of geographics. The Dolphins, well, I think it's going to be a long day for them, as I think it's going to be for Seattle. Expect a Sunday rout. I hate big spreads. I hate games that are 13.5 like this one is. But this is how strongly I feel that Buffalo's just going to mop up the field with the Dolphins with no Tua Tagovailoa to help them. Bills minus 13.5. And I just don't think there's anywhere else you can go with this game. Buffalo minus 13.5 is the pick. All right, we're halfway through the slate. Game number 4. It's the glam pick of Wild Card Weekend. Super Wild Card Weekend. The glam pick is the Giants plus 3 in Minnesota. And I keep trying to find a way to go away from the Giants because with all the money that's likely going on them, it just scares the bejesus out of me. I don't feel good about the idea that the Giants are, going to be able to handle the prosperity of being the popular pick this week. But there they are at plus 3, and we know how good the Giants have been all season long against the spread. I think they're about a 70% winning percentage against the spread. They covered in Minnesota earlier this year. Why wouldn't they do it again? It took a 61-yard field goal to beat them last time. I'm taking the Giants plus 3 in Minnesota. I'm just going to close my eyes and hope for the best. It's going to be a close game. 3 points is about right. You might wind up with a push, as Scott Seidenberg said earlier in the show. Bengals and Ravens is next on the docket. Again, I don't like big spreads. I've made that very clear. But when you start looking at, this Bengals matchup against the Ravens and you sort of break it down, it's got a very similar feel to what could happen between the Bills and the Dolphins. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to score. We've seen them with Tyler Huntley. We've seen them with Anthony Brown. And in both scenarios, scoring has been a problem for them. At the same token, I think their defense could do a decent job. And if I were going to go anywhere in this game, it's probably the under 40.5. Because the spread is still a little scary for me here. 8.5. Get a garbage touchdown late. Winds up being a 7 or an 8-point game. You get burned if you have the Bengals in that spot. I feel more comfortable with this game going under 40.5. So take that, under 40.5. The game I feel most confident about, though, is the final game on the docket. Tampa Bay plus 2.5 at home against the Cowboys. Look, how do you go against Tom Brady in this spot? Not because he's Tom Brady, but he's Tom Brady that's 7-0 for his career against the Dallas Cowboys. Throw in the fact that Dak Prescott keeps throwing interception after interception. And there's one thing that'll really hurt you in the playoffs. I don't need to be a rocket scientist to know it. You know what it is? Throwing the football to the opposing team, especially when that opposing team has Tom Brady. Dak will throw at least 1 pick in this game, if not 2. Tampa Bay plus 2.5, the pick on the road, or I should say at home on Monday night against the Cowboys. So let's recap our super wild card weekend picks in the NFL. The 49ers minus 9.5 at home against the Seahawks. Over 47.5 in the Chargers-Jaguars game. The Bills minus 13.5 at home against the Dolphins. The Giants plus 3 in Minnesota. The Bengals and Ravens under 40.5. Tampa Bay plus 2.5 at home against the Cowboys. Those are Paige's picks for Super Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. Now, if you like making picks and you haven't done this yet, what are you waiting for? Have you checked out playfortickets.com? Let's talk about playfortickets.com. The Super Playoff Pick'em is going on right now at playfortickets.com. That's play, F-O-R, tickets.com. I mean, the prize for this is amazing. If you have not gone to playfortickets.com and signed up yet, I'm telling you, do it tonight because this is your last chance to do it before the games get underway this weekend. So here's what we got going on. A trip for 2 to the NFL's biggest game, plus $50,000 cash. You know the game I'm talking about. It's super. Trip for 2, $50,000 cash, 2 tickets to go see the biggest game in the NFL, coming up this February in Glendale, Arizona. And it couldn't be simpler. All you got to do is make your picks at playfortickets.com. It's free to sign up. It's free to join. It's free to make your picks. You'll see all the games listed for Wild Card Weekend. You go and make your picks. Could be on your way to the big game if you get them all right. Simple as that. Now, this, just so you know, is for the Sunday and Monday games. Hear me again. Just for the Sunday and Monday games. Go on to playfortickets.com and make your picks. If you get them all right, could be on your way to the NFL's biggest game coming up this February in Glendale, Arizona. 2 tickets, $50,000 cash, airfare, hotel. It's all included. What are you waiting for? Go there now. Playfortickets.com and click on the Super Playoff Pick'em right now. We're coming back. Update you on our live betting game of the night. I'm Jason Page. Good to have you with us on the Cash In Friday edition of the show. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Nice job. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Good job. Yes. Yep. You can just mash them all together, and that's fine. So the Rogers segment, Seidenberg segment, the interview with McEnroe, and Page's picks. That's the podcast tonight. Cool. Thank you. Welcome back to the show. Been a busy one tonight. Coming up in 15 minutes, Scott Seidenberg will be our guest. He is our 2-for-1 tonight. We're talking all things sports betting with him, in particular the wild card weekend. I got to get his thoughts on that crazy loss we had last night in the under. We had the Lakers under 220. We had not the Lakers. We had the under 228.5 in that Lakers-Mavericks game last night, which went sideways because the game went to double overtime. It was a poorly officiated game. You had 7 admitted errors by the league in the final 2 minutes of regulation and in the 2 overtimes. 7 mistakes acknowledged by the NFL. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. And if you were on the wrong side of it, you have a right to be pretty ticked off. And we said it earlier tonight, and I'll say it again. Major League Baseball has made great strides to try and get them all right. The NFL has made great strides to get all the calls right. The NHL, great strides to get all the calls right. Soccer's got, this technology in place so they could tell when a play is offsides. But not the NBA. They just send us a report telling us how bad they screwed it up. And then you just gotta go, oh, damn. Well, that sucks. But again, in an era where sports betting is legal in, 60% of the country, if you had money, it is cold comfort for you to be told by the NBA, whoops, we got it wrong. And again, it makes people skeptical. And that's dangerous for a league. From an integrity standpoint, it's very dangerous for the league. Boy, we should have told you to take the under, by the way, when it was, 268.5 on the Rockets and Kings, because the scoring has come to a grinding halt in the fourth quarter of that game. Total's now 254.5. That might have been the good pick. Nuggets lead the Clippers 108-98. So we're doing all right there. 2:27 to go. Nuggets leading the Clippers 108-98. We gave you 222.5. Told you to take the under at 222.5. We're going to be sweating here a little bit over the final 227 of this game. That's pretty much the long and short of it. We're going to be sweating out the final 228 here. 222.5, huh? Yeah, it doesn't look very good right now. But we'll wait and see what the final score is, obviously, before we start hyperventilating. The phone number, 1-800-224-2004. So you heard Paige's picks. If you're just tuning in and you missed it, it'll be in the podcast, the Cash In podcast. You can get it every night after the show. You can get it in the morning when you wake up. The Cash In podcast, the Cash In with Jason Paige. Go and look on whatever your podcasting platform is, and you'll see it there. But just in case you missed it, recapping Paige's picks for this wild card weekend, super wild card weekend. We've got the 49ers minus 9.5 at home against the Seahawks. We've got over 47.5 in that Chargers-Jaguars game. So those are the Saturday games. We've got the Bills minus 13.5 at home against the Dolphins. We've got the Giants plus 3 in Minnesota against the Vikings. We've got the Bengals and Ravens under 40.5. We've got Tampa Bay plus 2.5 at home against the Cowboys. Those are Paige's picks for super wild card weekend in the NFL. And again, you could get all of it if you missed anything from the show. The Cash In podcast will be there waiting for you. By the way, one of the things I'm most excited about this weekend, Al Michaels back on NBC. And I won't have to worry about streaming it because it's NBC. He's doing the game with Tony Dungy on Saturday night. obviously, Sunday night it'll be Mike Tirico and Chris Collins with the call on that playoff game. Speaking of NFL ratings and NBC and CBS and Fox and ESPN, well, NFL regular season ratings had a little dip this year. We were talking about this the other day with regard to the Thursday night football game, but it gets a little worse. The overall ratings for the NFL actually went down 3% from last season. Now, a lot of people will say that's because of Thursday night football, but it is kind of interesting that the numbers went down a little bit this year. You know, we're always told NFL fans will go to any means, any extreme to go and get the games they want. But turns out that's not the case. You know, the Prime Video games, which everybody was talking about, people just didn't want to tune in to watch them. I thought that was kind of interesting. The big story from the NFL today has to do with this Chargers game. And to me, look, I think this is a very difficult game to try and handicap in terms of who wins. You know, last week, you had the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in a must-win against Tennessee. And they won that game. But what gets overlooked in that game is Trevor Lawrence didn't play his best football by any stretch of the imagination. That game shouldn't have even been as close as it was. And Tennessee was playing that game with Joshua Dobbs. And, you know, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be, you know, the next big can't-miss thing at quarterback here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that game went right down to the wire. So if you're a fan of Jacksonville, that had to be a little disconcerting that on the biggest stage to this point in his professional career, Trevor Lawrence played a really average football game. The good news is he gets to do it all over again because last week was like a playoff game, and they essentially won that playoff game, so they get to advance to the actual playoffs against the Chargers this week. But there's one big key that's going to be missing for the Chargers, and we talked about it a little bit in Paige's picks. But the Chargers being without Mike Williams is not a small. It is an enormous loss for this team. He has a small non-surgical fracture in his back. Amazingly, it's only going to sideline him 2 to 3 weeks. The problem is the season may be over for the Chargers by the time he gets back. He was downgraded to out for this game against the Jaguars. Chargers said Williams would remain in Los Angeles, continuing to receive treatment. Now, the injury occurred in the season finale against the Broncos, which is kind of interesting when you consider that game didn't matter for the Chargers and playoff position. And Brandon Staley's going to get crushed for the decision to play his guys, and he is. And Brandon Staley said it's difficult to decide who plays, who doesn't, who's more valuable than the rest. But at the end of the day, he winds up losing one of his top players because of a decision to play everybody. And look, there's a lot of teams that sat a lot of guys in the final week of the season, or at least sat them for a couple of quarters. Williams is the best pass catcher that the Chargers have had this season. He may not be their best receiver, but he's been the best pass catcher because he's been on the field a lot. 63 catches this year, 895 yards, 4 touchdowns. That is all gone for this Chargers team on Saturday. Or on Sunday, I should say. Sorry, Saturday. I'll get it right eventually. So instead of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams trying to torment the secondary in Jacksonville, it'll be Joshua Palmer, who's second on the team in receptions with 72 and 769 yards receiving. So instead of Allen and Williams going at him, it'll be Allen and Joshua Palmer who gets that opportunity. I can't wait to see Justin Herbert, though. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been waiting for this day since Justin Herbert got into the league, and that is to see Justin Herbert in a position to be able to play in the postseason, because we've gotten a look at the Burrows and the Mahomes and even Jalen Hurts we've seen in the postseason. We've seen Josh Allen in the postseason. You know, we talk about all these great young quarterbacks. You know, Lamar Jackson has had his opportunity in the postseason. Trevor Lawrence is going to get his opportunity. But the guy that I think could be as good as all of these top quarterbacks in the league is the one guy who hasn't gotten this opportunity in the playoffs yet. And that is the guy who's going to get it this weekend, Justin Herbert. So, and this guy's battled through a lot. Remember, he had the banged up ribs earlier in the year that he played through the whole way. And that's a tough injury to play through. Nobody will ever question his toughness. And he's going to get an opportunity in the postseason. Honestly, I think either story, if the Jaguars win, it's a great story for that organization considering where they were a year ago. And if the Chargers win, it's a great story. I don't think the NFL is going to lose either way with that one. Stick around. We're coming back with Scott Seidenberg, talk about the betting side of Wild Card Weekend next on the Cash In. Do 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 do.
But the point is, the only reason I tell that story is because it's fun, number one, but because my daughters who know nothing.
Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it with Scott Seidenberg, who I just watched let out a big yawn. What are you, sleepy bear over there? You going to be all right?
Technically it's 10:30 on the East Coast, so I guess it's late.
I guess it is. I guess for you it is. I would think the night is still young for you. You're still viral. You're still viral? Viral, not viral. If you're viral, that's another problem. I mean, if you stay out too late, you might catch some. Rolling along on this Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it with Scott Seidenberg, who I just watched let out a big yawn. What are you, sleepy bear over there? You going to be all right?
Technically it's 10:30 on the East Coast, so I guess it's late.
I guess it is. I guess for you it is. I would think the night is still young for you. You're still viral. You're viral? Viral, not viral. If you're viral, that's another problem. I mean, if you stay out too late, you might catch something and you might become viral. But you know what I mean? You're still viral. You're still lively. You're not like me and taking naps for 2 hours every day. I mean, you're still young. The night should still be young for you right now.
It is young, and full disclosure, it's only 7:30 here in Vegas, and I will be departing my house in about an hour and a half. So,
Fair enough. I was just saying, though, real quick, because my segments are shorter now in this new clock, which is driving me nuts. It's just talk about bad beats of bad beats. I've got to vent to somebody. I mean, you have the Lakers. You have the under 228.5 live bet that you make last night, if you're me, on that Lakers game against the Mavericks. Mm-hmm. And you got your audience all fired up. It's 101 at the end of regulation. You're thinking, okay, fine. One overtime, we're going to be fine. There's no way it goes to 2 over. Oh, my God, it goes to a second overtime. As somebody who does this for a living as you do, try and explain to me how you don't just, give up religion, give up everything when you have a loss like that.
Because you're going to have another one like that. And you'll have another one, and you'll have another one. You take the bad beats in stride with the good wins. And if you're consistently beating the closing number, or you're not, damaging your bankroll, you're going to be successful in the long term.
See, that's the problem for the casual gambler, though. That kind of loss could send you running. It could send you running for the exits.
Look, I had the over in the Gonzaga game last night. There were 83 points scored in the first half, and it didn't go over. The live total at halftime was 16 points higher than the pregame total. Turned the game off. Thought it was a win.
Hey, before I get to the wild card weekend games, if I'm looking at a good, value bet for conference AFC championship winner, to me, it feels like it has to be Cincinnati at plus 400. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. That's the only way to look if you're looking for value, because you obviously don't want to play the top two favorites in the Bills and the Chiefs. The other long shot that I would consider if I was looking for a play on an AFC championship team would be the Chargers. And as much as I hate Brandon Staley, I am going to have to say that the Chargers offer the best value because, first off, they're favored to win this game coming up tomorrow. So right off the bat, you're expecting them to win, even though I'm taking the Jaguars in a teaser. But still, they're favored in this game. Yet then you have to look at the path. If they win that game, they match up really well with the Kansas City Chiefs, who they lost to twice this year by a field goal, having fourth quarter leads in both of those games. And the ability to only play one of the big three teams in the AFC is a benefit. So, it's like the Bills. If you bet the Bills, they have to play the Bengals and the Chiefs in order to win the AFC. Same thing with the Bengals. They have to beat the Bills and the Chiefs. The Chargers would just have to beat, it's an easier path is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's run through these games real fast. Seahawks and 49ers. I'm not a fan of big spreads. This one's just under that line that I hate of 10 points. 49ers minus 9.5. This feels like it's got route written all over, but it also feels to me like a game that's going over the 42.5. Am I wrong?
How much is Seattle going to score? How much do you think they're going to score?
I think they could score enough. They're going to give up points.
See, that's the thing.
49ers at home with Brock Purdy are averaging 36 a game.
Yes, and you have to look at the 49er defense, though, which has been absolutely incredible. In the last game that they played against each other in Week 15, that was a Brock Purdy game. Yeah, he was solid, 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also didn't even practice that whole week because Kyle Shanahan wanted to give his team rest because that's how banged up and injured they were. But Seattle just had 6 points for most of the game until they got a garbage time touchdown And if you take that garbage time out of the equation, 6 points and only about 200 yards of offense prior to the garbage time score, I just don't know how much Seattle's going to score on this San Francisco defense. And you look at what the Niners have done, 10 straight wins with an average margin of victory of 16 points.
So you like the -9.5 then?
I would lay the wood in this one. I absolutely would. They're number one rankings on defense in really every statistical ranking. It's just, to me, I know you can look at the point spreads this weekend and say, oh, well, if Miami beats Buffalo, that would be the biggest surprise because they're a 13.5-point dog,
right,
as opposed to a 9.5 or a 10-point dog. But I would be utterly shocked if Seattle won this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Chargers and Jaguars. Look, I have Patrick McEnroe coming on the show in the next hour. His upset special is the Jacksonville Jaguars to win on Saturday in that wild card matchup. I don't know how much of a huge upset that would be, considering it's only a 2.5-point spread. But
and they're home.
And they're at home. But give me your thoughts on the Jags at home against the Chargers.
So full disclosure, I already played the Jaguars in a teaser. It's the perfect Wong teaser because you can get them through the 3 and through the 7. So if you find another dance partner, i.e., like a 7-point teaser with the Bengals or a 7-point teaser with the 49ers, taking the Jaguars up north of 3 and north of 7 is a perfect, advantage teaser play. I think the Chargers win this game, though. I think it's a close game because I could see Jacksonville, as well as they've played, keeping this close and actually have a chance to win this game. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is how healthy the Chargers defense has gotten over the past several weeks. And in fact, since their bye week in week 8, the Chargers are the number 2 pass defense in DVOA in the NFL. And the Jaguars are a bottom 5 pass defense. And that plays right into the strength of Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense. Even without Mike Williams, they just can't defend the pass. If you're looking for an attractive prop bet in this game, I would take the over on Austin Eckler receptions. He had 8 the last time these two teams played.
It's a good one. Dolphins and Bills, the 13.5. Again, I'm not a fan of huge spreads, backdoor covers. But again, if there was a big spread I was going to play, it would be Buffalo. It's hard to imagine Miami being able to score all that much. We've seen what they look like with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Your thoughts?
And Skylar Thompson is not 100% healthy either, so it wouldn't surprise me if we actually get a Mike Glennon appearance in this game. Here's the thing: I look back at last year's wild card game where the Bills dismantled the Patriots 47-17, and I don't see how this one's any different. The Bills it's been an emotional season. Not just the DeMar Hamlin situation. They've dealt with 2 big snowstorms in the area, one having to move one of their games to Detroit, another one just preventing them from getting into the facility all week and having to shovel out their homes and whatnot. It's just been a trying year for Buffalo, but now the playoffs are here. They have their eyes set on this rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs, taking revenge for the 17 seconds last year. Nothing's going to stand in their way. Not the Miami Dolphins, certainly.
The glam pick feels like the Giants. Everybody's on that New York bandwagon. They're almost acting like the Giants won that game against the Vikings several weeks back instead of Caleb Joseph hitting a game-winning field goal from 60-plus yards. But here we are, the Giants +3 in Minnesota. It scares the death out of me that everybody loves the Giants.
Well, the Giants did win that game because the Vikings were 4.5-point favorites, and they only lost by 3. So the Giants did win that game. They won it for me, and they won it for anybody else who bet on the Giants plus the points. In that game, the Giants had 445 yards of offense against the Minnesota Vikings. If you look at all, at pregame.com, we have some proprietary rankings that we do when it comes to projected point margins and how much really each team should have won their games by, should have lost their games by. How good is each team? The Giants and Vikings are even teams, and the records don't show it, but the stats do. And the Vikings, probably the best home field in the NFL besides Lambeau Field, so they'll get the free 3 points. The line seems accurate to me. I have no problem with this being a 3-point spread. They're not going to hang a 3.5 because the books will get hammered by the Giants' money. They're not going to hang a 2.5 because they'll get hammered by Vikings' money. So 3 is the perfect line. It's not going to move off of the 3.
Okay.
I like the Giants in this spot. I think this is the game where all the money's going to come in, and everyone's going to get their money back because it's going to land exactly on the number. I think the Vikings win this one by 3. I love the way that Daniel Jones has played. I would take a look at Daniel Jones over rushing prop in this game.
Ooh, I like that. Real quick, 5 seconds or less. Cowboys or Buccaneers?
Tampa. Tom Brady, home underdog.
I agree.
The Cowboys over the last 5 weeks defense has looked terrible, allowing 27.2 points per game.
Scott Seidenberg, pregame.com. Check him out there. Have a great weekend, my friend.
See you later.
Scott Seidenberg, love him. Check him out, pregame.com. We're coming back. Wrap up this hour of the Cash In next. Dude, very cool. Thank you. Do you believe? Getting set to put the wraps on this baby. Get you into the weekend. So I said I wasn't going to bowl in any more tournaments, that I was tired of getting my you-know-what handed to me. I mean, I used to be a pretty competitive bowler. Used to be pretty good. But since I came back to bowling about 17 months ago, it has been tough sledding, man. It took a few years off, and it is just kicking my you-know-what. So somebody roped me into bowling a trios tournament. So I'll be doing that on Saturday afternoon out here in Palm Springs. Hope not to embarrass myself. My goals have changed. It's gone from like hoping to win to hoping not to hurt myself and hoping just to bowl, decent. It's all I got left, man. It's all I got left is just bowl decent. Try. I said my New Year's resolution for this year was to get healthier, live a more healthy lifestyle. And I finally got to a doctor, so we're a work in progress. We're trying to get it all figured out, but it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough getting healthy when you haven't been for a long time. So, a couple of coaching items to get to before we say goodbye. One, Sean McVay, there had been talk about him leaving Los Angeles and basically abandoning the Rams to go to the broadcast booth or take some time off. Well, McVay said in his end-of-season news conference on Friday that he's going to remain the head coach. But he did say he would be taking the appropriate time to make a decision on his future to figure out, quote, the best way to continue to move forward in the right way to be the best coach you can possibly be. Mind you, he's got a contract extension that runs through 2026. During the 2022 offseason, he signed a contract extension that runs through the 2026 season. Here's the thing for a lot of these great, these good, young, articulate, bright head coaches like Sean McVay. I mean, I'm not sure what his exact salary is. I can look it up probably and find out Sean McVay's salary. I mean, he's making $14 million a year. He's the third highest paid coach in all of American sports. Could you name the two that are more high paid than him? If I gave you 5 guesses at who the highest paid NFL head coaches, highest paid in all of American sports coaches, not even just football, but they are both football. If I told you, name me the 2 highest paid coaches in football, could you do it? If you gave me long enough, I would have definitely come up with one of these. Bill Belichick makes $20 million a year. By the way, if what you're getting out of Bill Belichick these days for $20 million a year is what the Patriots were this year, that may not last much longer. And Pete Carroll, believe it or not, earns more than McVay at $15 million. How is Andy Reid not near the top of that list? No, really. How does Andy Reid not make more? Andy Reid's not even in the top 5? How is that possible? So here's the top 5. I'll give you the top 10 highest paid coaches in U.S. sports. Here we go. Ready? Bill Belichick at $20 million. Pete Carroll at $15. Sean McVay at $14. This is in millions. Greg Popovich cracks the list. The only non-football coach on the list. Greg Popovich is number 3 at $14 million. How is Steve Kerr not near that? I don't get it. So Pop makes $13 million a year. Mike Tomlin is in at number 5 at $12.5 million. Tied for 6th is Andy Reid and John Harbaugh at $12 million. Okay, I mean, that's fair. Nick Saban is 8th on the list at $11.8 million. Dabo Swinney is $11.5 million. He's 9th. And Kirby Smart might be fixing for a raise. He's number 10 at $11.3 million. So those are your highest paid coaches in the league. According to the New York Post, Amazon may have offered Sean McVay as much as $100 million for 5 years. And this gets to my point. If you're Sean McVay, you've won a Super Bowl. You're still in your what? Your 30s? What's he, 38, 39? Hey, Google, how old is Sean McVay? 36 years old. So, there you go. Hey, Google, stop. So 36 years old for Sean McVay. I mean, think about that for a second. 36 years old, and you don't have to coach again in the NFL, and you can make $100 million for 5 years. Then why go through it? Why go through the hell that is coaching an NFL? I mean, it's a thankless job. When you win, you're great. When you lose, you suck. You only had to coach for a few years in the league, and you can go take this mint broadcasting gig. If I were Sean McVay, I'd do it too. I wouldn't begrudge anybody if you could make that kind of money to do the kind of work that a lot of these guys do on television. And it's not to say it isn't work. Frankly, I mean, you get to talk about football, and they always say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. These guys who have there's a reason you've seen Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, Michael Strahan, Phil Simms, Boomer Esiason, and all these guys that work on these broadcasts. There's a reason you've seen them for all these years. And it's simple. Those are great gigs. Those are great jobs. You know, those are mint positions that unless you go and drop an F-bomb on the air or say something racist or something bigoted, you're gonna keep those jobs for as long as you want them. So, if I were Sean McVay, I'd certainly reconsider the idea of coaching versus going into the broadcast booth. Great story to finish the show. Ready? Jay Withey. You may not know who Jay Withey is, but he's become a local hero in Buffalo, known as Merry Christmas Jay. He rescued 24 people during the deadly snowstorm in Buffalo last month. Well, Bills legend Thurman Thomas and his wife Patty presented Jay Withey today with 2 tickets to the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, on behalf of the Bills and Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. How cool is that? On Christmas Eve, he broke a window of a school while seeking shelter from the blizzard after spending a night sleeping in his truck with 2 strangers to stay alive. Once inside, he went back out into the storm looking for other people who needed help, including 7 elderly people who were stranded in their cars, brought them to safety inside the school as well. He's earned the title, moniker, whatever you want to call it, Merry Christmas Jay, after he left a note for the school explaining why he broke in. Quote, "To whom it may concern, I'm terribly sorry about breaking the school window and for breaking in the kitchen. Got stuck at 8 p.m. Friday, slept in my truck with 2 strangers just trying not to die. There were 7 elderly people also stuck and out of fuel. I had to do it to save everyone and get them shelter and food and a bathroom. Merry Christmas." How cool is that? It's really neat. You know, in a day and age where there's so much negative news out there, that it's almost hard to go through your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed or, whatever social media app you're looking at, because there's just so much bad news out there. It's nice to finish the week with a story that shows some of the good people can do in the most dire of situations, and that others recognize that good and do something to reward them. Very cool. Congratulations to Jay Withey. Hopefully he enjoys his tickets to the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. By the way, if you want tickets to that same game, I'm just going to tell you again, you've got, another day to do it. Go to playfortickets.com. Play the Super Playoff Pick'em contest. You can go to the NFL's biggest game this February in Glendale, Arizona. We were just talking about it. You know the one. Trip for two, $50,000 cash, tickets to the game, airfare, hotel, it's all included. Go to playfortickets.com. Pick the games as they're listed there. Get them all right. You're going to that big game. Good job tonight, Justin, producing it. I'm Jason Page. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday for the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye! Yeah, nice job tonight. Seriously. Have a good night. All right. Bye. I don't know why Friday the 13th is on my screen behind me, but 1985 called. It wants its horror movie back. All right, that's going to do it for us. The show is over. Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the football. We'll see you back here on Monday for the recap of Wild Card Weekend, the recap of Broncos Buccaneers, which will probably be still on the air when we get on the air next Monday night. Everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. Hopefully I don't hurt myself bowling. And we'll see you back here on Monday for the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Thanks for watching on Twitch and all our other video streaming platforms. Make sure to check me out on TikTok, The Jason Page. If you're not following me on TikTok, go there. We're putting up some great content every day. I'll see you back here on Monday. Bye.